Good evening, valued listeners, shareholders, and other life forms tuning in across the syndicate. This is episode 6 of our Dungeon Crawler World coverage, and we're reviewing the most recent incidents our Earth Crawlers have wrought. By this point in the crawl, the rules have been bent, stretched, and in several cases weaponized. Certain crawlers, notably one pants-averse human and his increasingly brandable feline associate, begin demonstrating a trembling aptitude for strategic disruption. Expect reversals, expect casualties, expect at least one decision that legal is still reviewing, and whether you're here for the blood sport, the politics, or the destabilization of our entire way of life, this stretch of the book marks a shift. The crawlers are learning, and the sponsors are nervous for it. Let's begin.
Welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and Jon and Kyle, their gamer-turned-reader husbands who've agreed to read with them. I'm Con.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Jon. Today we are discussing Carl's Doomsday Scenario, chapters 18 to the end. This book club podcast is a safe space to read along spoiler-free. But since we've now finished this book, book number 2, there will be spoilers for this entire book in the episode, but no spoilers for the bonus chapter or future books.
We would love for you to join our Patreon family. All tiers give you access to our Discord, where you can chat about each episode however you like, with spoilers or not. $5 a month opens up the door to live events, our book club, reading challenges, and the full archive of past content. Step up to $10 a month and you'll enjoy early ad-free episodes, merch discounts, voting privileges, a private hangout space, and even more ways to connect with us.
And now, a message from a listener like you. Here's a recent 5-star review on Apple Podcasts from our new bestie, aGraph510, titled, Always Fantastic. My favorite podcast. I found you right when I was starting Throne of Glass, and it was so very fun to do my first read along with you all. I promptly binged everything and read along for all the other seasons. Was a bit skeptical about Dungeon Crawler Carl, but OMG, Kyle did not steer us wrong. Thoroughly enjoying the book so far. Thank you for all the laughs. Thank you, aGraph510, 510.
Yes.
Amazing. Yes, aGraph.
If you want to shout out on the pod like that one, we'd love for you to write a quick review for our show on Apple Podcasts or Audible. It helps new listeners find us and makes us kick our feet and giggle a little.
Do you think it's supposed to be a giraffe?
I don't know.
Is that what the username is?
A giraffe. I don't know. It could be.
Like a 5'10" giraffe, maybe?
5'10" giraffe.
A giraffe with
Just a little
lemurs
guy.
on it.
I recently had to make Faye a profile on our Switch, and I had to make her a little gamer name. And
Yeah.
I was like,
Faye's our
Emma just
daughter,
picked.
for everyone listening.
Oh,
She what?
I don't know if we're going to even include this, but Emma just had showed her what Emma did. She picked like her favorite thing and her favorite animal. And Faye was like, I like ghosts and giraffes. So what about Ghost Giraffe? And I was like, Faye, that's actually a pretty sick username.
That is a sick username. Was it taken? Is that her name?
That's her name.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
that's
her
amazing.
username, not like her public profile that people could find her through. It's just how she logs
Wow.
in.
Oh, I see. I see. I love it. That's amazing.
Now imagine her at 30 and she's still using it because she
Yeah.
picked it when she was 4.
I can
That's how
I
you
can picture the branding
about to
already
say-
You know what
when
I
she
mean?
becomes a streamer.
Welcome back to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide, the part of the show where we highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. We are, of course, referencing the audiobooks and narrated by the incredible Jeff Hayes. Love him so much. If you have not listened to the audiobooks, this is once again your reminder to go do that. What are you doing? You could listen to them right now. We'll still be here. Go do that and then come back. Anyway, if you haven't listened to them, here are some of our places, characters, species and mobs, and world building from this section. First up, we have the Prism Kingdom and the Apido Education Center, labeled by the AI as a corrupt temple. This is the outreach department of the 201st Security Group Militia. In characters, we have Burgundy, Miss Quill, the Skyfowl, the Divider, a level 17 boss killed by Daniel Bautista II. And then from the Danger Zone with Ripper Wonton, we got D-0NAH, affectionately referred to as Donna the Robot, the Frisbee robot thing who helped prep Carl and Donut in the production trailer. Evo was the program director for the show. Princess Donatia of the Prism, a Sac or Sacathian. This is described as a human-sized Cthulhu with gray bumpy skin and a tangle of squid-like tentacles hanging from her cephalopod face. Sick. Ripper Wonton of the Cetonix race aka a Quokka. Manasa was a Naga sort of and famed singer. Tucker was the stand-up comedian. Ferdinand, aka Gravy Boat, who belonged to Marjorie on the first floor. This is my favorite thing from this section. And then Chappie the Elf and Queen Consort Uglu of the Skull Empire. What a name. From the temple, we met Salvatore, the city elf, root druid, and temple recruitment wand bearer. Carmine, the wind mage. Donut, the Oakfell, my other favorite thing from this section. The death upon us all, she who ends, aka Apito's Antichrist. And then Eunice was the super pregnant Fathom Dwarf, and Ricky Joe and his brother Bubba Lane were 2 juvenile Fathom Dwarfs. Katya Grimm we meet in this section. She's a doppelganger and monster truck driver. Her game guide's name is Bannon. And then we met Remix, Miss Quill's husband and the former magistrate, now a soul leech capacitor, also a former crawler and referred to as Remix the Grand. Daniel Bautista, too, is a Tigran and swashbuckler. Quan CH was the Imperial security trooper blocked from the group chat. Conrad E was the crawler who exploded because of his arrows, RIP. And then from the leaderboard in the epilogue, we had a couple of new names. These were Prepotente, Florin, Miriam Dom, and Ifechi. In species and mobs this week, we have chickadees, a smaller version of the skyfowl, shambling berserkers, aka the mini grinder or the shrilling. These creatures consist of extra parts found after creating the world dungeon. Forsoothed or soothers, these resemble Earth's idea of aliens, although Evo says Earth's aliens illustrations look more like the null. Gleaners are fish creatures that look more like human-sized kuatin. And then ruin flockers are screeching emu-like mobs. Lastly, in world building, we have magical fervor. This was activated by eating some type of acorn, which made the elves glow blue, tripled their mana points, and increased their strength. Knuckle cracking was another dungeon show that we heard of but don't know anything about yet. Suppurating Eye was the common lich spell referred to in this section. Chimaris was the encased beanie baby Carl took from Miss Quill's collection, and it was inside of the Sheol Glass Reaper case. And lastly, Tenor was the nickname we got for someone who got out on the 10th floor. That's all I got for you. Over to John with the weather.
All right, chapter 18, coming off a fresh dead hooker falling from the sky, Carl and Donut head directly to the magistrate's office, which is above some type of shopping mall of sorts and apparently very difficult to get into. On their way up the stairs to the office, they run into a human named Burgundy, who wishes them a snide good luck after stating their intent to speak with the magistrate. They meet Miss Quill, assistant magistrate.
Assistant to the magistrate.
Okay, thank you. A level 30 Skyfowl, she gives them the old runaround about not having an appointment, was the victim a Skyfowl, etc., and they end up plopping the entire corpse on her desk, knocking things over, including Miss Quill's Dungeon Beanie Baby collection. They get her to agree to tell him that they were there, and also they examine the door to his office, and they see that it's magical. They leave to do some grinding and end up finding an already defeated neighborhood boss killed by Daniel Bautista too. Getting a closer look, and the area goes dark as they are attacked by mobs, some weird body monsters by IKEA called shambling berserkers. Carl throws some dynamite, but it rebounds, blowing up most of the mobs, but makes the bloated boss corpse explode, and Carl gets blasted up onto a roof. Donut finds him quickly, heals him up, and they kill the rest of the mobs, getting some pretty good experience. Chapter 19, they arrive at the trailer for their next show, apparently needing to switch to one with more cleaning capabilities due to how disgusting Donut and Mongo were. Their servant robot, Donna, lets them know that they'll be in front of royalty, and when Carl asks about Maestro, whether it will be him, it tells them that Maestro is actually stripped of his titles and disowned, no longer royalty. And they find out that they're on a show called Danger Zone with Ripper Wanton. They meet Evo, the program director of the Forsoothed race, and it gives them an overview of who will be on the show. Princess Donatia, Manassa, Tucker, and Hecla, my Hecla! What up, girl? Hecla is actually there as Evo introduces her, and they say hello. She asks them to help one of her friends who is in their vicinity, and Donut quickly agrees to help her. They finally get into the show, which eventually leads to Ripper asking Carl about the whole Maestro situation. They've clearly planned a response to this question, which includes, quote-unquote, planting a seed, as Carl talks a little bit about if you don't like your government, then you should do something about it. In the middle of Ripper's response, they get thrown from their seats. And Ripper gets some more info. They start a segment called the Danger Zone, which is basically viewers asking the guests questions. First one being Hecla about abandoning her husband. Carl also fields a question, and then we find out who Ferdinand truly is. Apparently, Ferdinand, aka Gravy Boat, was the PIMP of the surrounding area. Ripper finally comes back with the news that there was a pulse attack on Manasseh's trailer and she was killed, but that wasn't meant for her, but for Carl and Donut, per Prince Stalwart's simultaneous statement, apparently retaliating against their remarks on the show, which happened a little bit too quickly. The Volte and Skull Empire were allies, so this accident doesn't go over well, and Ripper gets a report that a Volte ship blew up Stalwart's yacht and apparently took out Maestro and his mother, the Queen. Chapter 20, back in the trailer, Carl starts thinking about what happened and warns Donut that they need to be careful. Stalwart's response was too quick and too prepared, like even the cameras were ready. Carl thinks of another possible source for what happened, because in this instance, Borant majorly benefits from this scenario, with Volte losing a major ally and possibly going to war with the Skull Empire, which would get them off Borant's back. Back in the safe room, they debrief with Zev and Mordecai, learning that King Rust will likely have to disown Stalwart too, leaving only their daughter as heir. Mordecai eventually recommends never bringing up the Orcs or the Skull Empire again until after the 6th floor, and they kind of put this behind them for now. Mordecai found the Magic Core HQ, and they head that way to investigate. Carl tests a stick of Hobgoblin dynamite on some more shambling berserkers, only to discover that it is significantly more powerful. They get to the headquarters, that has a few elves on guard out front, with a family of dwarven kids playing nearby. One of the kids drops his salamander on a stick and throws a rock at the elves, and they magically reflect it back, hitting him in the head, which causes the rest of them to grab him up and take their wailing sibling inside. After which Mongo gobbles up said salamander on a stick. While chatting with the elves, Carl discovers that it's because of the anklet of the fallen oak that they took and put on Donut that these fanatics know who they are and are acting like Donut is the Antichrist of a pedo. So their plan is to goad the elves into attacking them, drawing a couple nearby guards to join the fight and then take them out. However, their plan gets a little interrupted by the pregnant dwarven mother popping in and clubbing the absolute shit out of one of the elves. The nearby guards come to investigate and go to literally cleave little Ricky Joe, and of course, Carl steps in to intervene. He punches one of the guards, marking them as troublemakers, and little Ricky Joe punches Mongo in the face for eating the salamander, goes for a second punch when Mongo just takes his arm. They call out a set play. Carl throws a jug of boom in the air and they blip to a nearby roof, fully engulfing everything at the entrance of the temple. A bunch of buildings end up burning down, including the temple, as Mongo Ralphs up the kid's arm. Chapter 21, they get to talking to Ricky Joe on the roof and learn that some skyfowl lady would come to the temple right before dark and leave pretty much right away with a bunch of females who came from out of town. They finally return to the pub to find Mordecai and Hecla's friend Katya. But Katya is a work in progress, only level 9 and a doppelganger. Different from a changeling, a doppel has to take all of their mass, including their gear, and shape it into something of equal mass. Mordecai fills in Carl on her advantages and disadvantages, mainly being her low level. The recap is on in the background, and Donut pops up, and apparently the AI or something took what Donut said about Lucia's dogs and turned it into some kind of a versus challenge on an arena fight show, and now they are on Lucia's radar. They keep their promise to Hecla. Katya joins their party, but she's going to stay with Mordecai while they go finish the sex worker quest. They had found out that the mysterious letter was also a magic spell that allowed whoever to cast it to listen in when it was out, almost like a bug. They use this to their advantage as they send some decoys to the roof of the Magistrate office and then blow the roof sky high. Although it did way more, basically blew the office, reception, and half of the building. Chapter 22. And with that, Carl gets a notification that he is now the town magistrate. plus a few extra achievements. But with Featherfall dead, they still haven't completed the quest, which possibly confirms Carl's suspicions that Assistant Magistrate...
assistant to the Magistrate?
Right. Miss Quill was really the bad guy, but she should have been in the blast as well. They drop in to check things out, being very cautious. Inside the office is another door, which they ease into, finding a bunch of X's, but then multiple red dots. The room was filled with the female corpses of the Kresu, and in the center, in a cage, was Featherfall, very dead. The space is a muted zone, which means no magic. Mongo destroys one of the Kresu, which starts to wake the others up, and all hell kind of breaks loose. Carl throws in a smoke bomb, making the waking females bump into each other. As they escape the room, Carl pulls out his scratch-off ticket. He gets a fireball this time, launching it back into the room, killing the remainder, and frying Featherfall in the process, realizing fully now that assistant to the Magistrate, Miss Quill, was the real baddie. And then they spy one of the Kresu turned normal. It was Burgundy, the one they ran into before at the office. They need to get more details to close out the quest, so they start asking her a bunch of questions. They find out that Miss Quill has been running things the entire time. And Carl also noted here how a lot of the AI had shown some misinformation about a lot of characters up to this point. Burgundy tells them about Quill's husband Remex, apparently above the guard station, and something about a big spell. Before they can get more, the building starts to collapse and they have to kind of mercy kill Burgundy and get out of there. Chapter 23, they are back down on the street. Carl notices something in the debris. One of Quill's beanie babies is what is most likely a magical case that protected it. A crowd is watching the building burn and collapse when a crawler walks their way. Carl tells Donut to not let him see her anklet, as it was this guy's family that they took it off of. And they officially meet Daniel the Tiger. I mean, Daniel Bautista to a Tigran swashbuckler. Basically a huge human big cat hybrid. They chat for a bit, telling him about finding his family and killing the creatures that did it in the circus. He offers Carl and Donut a debt, links up to their chat, and then heads out. They make their way over to the guard station and prepare to head into the second floor, which should be where Remex is. Before they go, they rig up the place with a bunch of explosives and give Katya the detonator as a last resort in case they don't make it out. They head up and discover that it is no Lich. Chapter 24, it is Remex, but he is something called a soul leech capacitor, a minion of Miss Quill, also her reanimated husband, as we learn. There's also a soul crystal nearby, pulsing with power. This takes in the soul energy of dead bodies in the town to basically recharge the guards every night. Its power is also connected in some way to Remex. Then we get a huge info dump here from Remex as part of the quest, and basically here that is. So, Remex used to be the Magistrate. He died and was succeeded by Featherfall. Featherfall didn't like the town guards since they were autonomous and fed by the Soul Crystal, and he couldn't control them. So, in an attempt to gain control, he teamed up with Miss Quill to cast a spell to subjugate the guards. This spell was going to bring Remex back from the dead as a capacitor to control the power, but he screwed it up and Featherfall was killed. However, Quill knew this was going to happen the whole time, and she takes control of Remex as the capacitor. She proceeds to fool everyone and take control of the town by pretending Featherfall was still alive. She starts using the Kresu avatars of Remex to do things locally in town, but they couldn't go very far, and so she used her powers to make a group of elves into her loyal followers believing in Apito. The elves started to bring in women who were then killed and turned into more avatars. Whenever they were killed and changed into Kresu, this provided more soul power, powering up the soul gem, plus Remex as the capacitor. The reason for this was that Quill, a granddaughter of the old royal family, was building an army to reclaim the entire Overcity as her kingdom. She was growing energy to prepare a massive spell that would kill everyone, basically except all of the Skyfowl. And there's a quote here: once completed, the beast she unleashed would sweep across the Overcity and slaughter all but those whose essence she has protected, those she's added to the spell. So once they get all this info from Remex, they get the quest completed, but they get a brand new quest called The Fools Who Broke the Glass, a group quest, and they are now hosts, so they cannot opt out of this quest. And basically, because they screwed up the spell that was already in process, and the AI lets them know there will be an explosion, and their goal is to survive. They chat with Katya, who is going to try and get the NPCs to safety. Meanwhile, Carl gets an idea. He pulls out that Beanie Baby that he found with a magical case. He takes the case and closes the soul gem into it, but he can't put it into his inventory, and they have less than like a minute in the explosion, and it's likely going to kill them anyway, even if they try to run. So they just stay there and wait for the inevitable. Chapter 25, the timer finishes and Remix screams as a miniature sun bright explosion happens within the case, but they're alive. The case had fallen to the ground red hot. Carl's able to grab it, put it into his inventory. It's now an unstable explosive called Carl's Doomsday Scenario. They said it! They said it! But now Remix is glowing with a timer, and the AI comes on to announce that another explosion will happen. They've already been hit with a foreshock that rendered all of their magically equipped gear basically useless. Basically, the pulses target magical items and has like a random effect. Mordecai instructs them to take off all magical gear and put it in their inventory. They do decide to leave on Donut's tiara for now, but Carl is now naked. They meet up with Katya and some other crawlers, and they run for the nearest stairwell. After witnessing a guy explode after a pulse, they decide to have Donut take off the tiara, but it is destroyed by the next pulse before she can unequip it. They continue running and make it to the stairwell. They make sure Mordecai is okay, and he tells them that all the crawlers and NPCs made it who are trying to escape. Only the guards are left on the street, reanimated by the last wave with only one hit point. Carl tells Katya to use the detonator, although he's not hopeful since the pulses have destroyed everything magical, but it's worth a shot for trying to kill off any guards and maybe get some experience. Katya slams down the detonator, and as they head into the stairwell door, Donut reminds Carl that while his junk is still hanging out, they're heading straight to Audette's show. Epilogue. They are waiting in the trailer. They get a look at the real Katya. Carl wraps himself in a TP loincloth before they go out with Audette. Then Audette shows them what happened after they left and the result of Katya pressing the detonator. So the explosives did blow after a ruling that the detonator be exempt from the pulse blasts. It was also ruled that they receive the achievements from the result of the explosions. However, the host can veto once per season, and based on the nature of the prizes, Borat ended up vetoing their loot boxes that they would have received, which had been upgraded to celestial boxes, of course. But before the ruling, the guy that had chatted them and called them a-holes received one and opened it, so he gets to keep what he got. Lucky him. Then it shows what happened. Right as Remix was about to blow, their explosives went off, killing a bunch of guards, but also Remix, which effectively stopped him from exploding. This apparently saved a bunch of crawlers and a ton of NPCs, and while they didn't receive a celestial box, they did still get a bunch of their experience. Carl went from level 21 to 27, Donut from 19 to 26, and Katya from 9 to 21. Audette then shows them the dungeon leaderboard in order from number 1, Lucia, Hecla, Prepotente, Florin the crocodile guy, Miriam, the lady with the goats, Carl, Donut, Ifechi, Li Jun, one of the guys that they saved from the Maestro show, and wouldn't you know it, coming in hot at number 10 is Mrs. Frickin' McGibbons, dude. Amazing. Audette warns Carl about his gauntlet and the Gruul celebrants that they'll find, and fills him in that Rust has spent a great deal on a deity sponsorship, probably on Gruul for that very reason. She then sends off Katya and Donut to speak to Carl alone. She tells him to be wary of Hecla and Katya, that she's been watching Hecla, and apparently Hecla really wants Donut in their party, primarily since Mordecai would also be kind of part of that deal. Carl asks about the numbers next to their names on the leaderboard and learns that on top of everything else, crawlers have bounties on their heads.
Amazing, as always. Nice. I have to ask, and I didn't, expect it to be in the recap, but did you listen fully to get the little commercial at the end after the epilogue?
Yeah.
Oh,
you didn't?
I did not.
There's a little more content for you then when we're done here.
Yeah, I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
There's always a little extra.
It's questionably canon, but it is good.
So I read Matt's note that he has or whatever at the end. Is it before that or after that?
It is not even in the written book.
It's not written.
Yeah, so.
It's only the audio.
That's what I figured. Okay, gotcha.
You should go check it out.
Yeah, I kept listening because at the very end of the first book, it was like it was just like the note from the author, whatever, was like a little bit different than whatever was in the audio. But so I was kind of expecting that this time. And then, or acknowledgements, whatever it was. But then it just like kept going. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Probably one of the only books I've ever read with what is pretty much an after credit scene.
It was.
But even then, the epilogue is like its own after credits.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the whole
Amazing.
interview and everything.
Yeah. Well,
It's such a good one. Okay,
yeah.
let's talk about it. Okay, chapter 18. First of all, Carl flopping this dead hooker down on Miss Quill's desk was morbidly hilarious. Really made me laugh out loud. But during this scene, like after he places her back in his inventory, he notices that a milky white stain of fluid covered Miss Quill's desk, which is gross. But and I know that like the Krassu are draining their blood, but if the words carved into the corpse's flesh are even bloodless, I would assume that this means that they've been dead for a decent amount of time before being like carved and dropped. And I also would assume that the milky white stuff is purge fluid if these are humans, which would mean that they've been dead for like 3 to 4 days. So at this point, I just was wondering if all of these bodies were being like hoarded somewhere and then dropped via skyfowl or like some kind of huddle jumper spell. I don't know if that's even possible. But also like, can all of those bodies, I guess, just be stored in a murderer's inventory until they're ready to drop them? Do they continue decomposing if they're in someone's inventory?
All good questions.
I know in the first book it said that
bombs
crawlers
don't go
couldn't
off.
put... Yeah.
Right.
The bombs don't go off if they're in the inventory, so I would think the
Yeah.
body doesn't decompose.
But yeah, NPCs might be different. Because they said crawlers specifically couldn't put corpses in their inventory, I think, in the first book. But maybe...
Oh, but Carl
does
did.
with his hooker.
That's true. I wonder if that was undone, because I do remember them specifically... Oh, they said they couldn't kill monsters by putting them in their inventory. That was the patch. Never mind.
Okay. I don't know. I was just really invested in the logistics of this whole situation.
So I would say that yes, they do decay, if anything, because people were killing monsters by putting them in their inventory, and I assume they suffocated or something, and time moved on. But yeah,
Well, I guess that's like, well, that would be I guess that would be different if you're putting a living thing
yeah,
in your inventory. But if you could put corpses in your inventory, I mean, that seems. And like the other crawler corpses are lootable, but could you also put another crawler corpse in your inventory?
yeah. Or where do they draw the line? Like, just
Right.
one person's missing limb versus the whole body.
He did put a lion heart in his
Yeah.
inventory. I don't know. I had a lot of questions about this.
That's what he should start doing, is just start taking little pieces at a time off monsters, putting them in his inventory until they're
And then he can
dead.
make his own
Yeah.
shambling berserker when he's done. Sorry, we can move on.
I just had a note about Donut talking about the magistrate when she says, "We don't even know for sure that he has anything to do with it." I was like, oh, please. Come on. He's clearly guilty.
Clearly.
Clearly.
And then we found out here that the crawler who killed the Divider, which was the level 17 boss, was named Daniel Bautista too. And I immediately recognized his name from the sisters earlier in the book. And I thought it was odd at the time that we got like full names for all of them, but I just wasn't really expecting to see another person from their party. Like I'd figured that was just all of them. So it was kind of fun. I mean, not fun for them, but anyway, I had forgotten about it. Never mind. Carl says here, I couldn't see the mobs, but I could sense them there, moaning and shuffling toward us. This is before he actually saw, this is when they saw the shambling berserkers for the first time. And he said, were they zombies? Jesus, that was a terrifying thought. And I said, was it? You have seen so much worse here than zombies. Like, why
That's
are you
fair. I didn't
scared
think
of
of it that
something?
way. After everything he sees, oh no.
Yeah, oh no, a zombie.
Everyone has
That
their
just made
fears,
me
I
laugh.
guess. Speaking of the Shambling Berserker and zombies, though, the description was them being 13-foot tall monstrosities made of spare parts, and also being said that they're 4 times stronger in the dark is terrifying. Perhaps more so as I'm reading this section the same time the new Resident Evil Requiem is just coming out, and that is exactly how what is called the Shadow Ghost works in that game. It's can't go into light, it's stronger in the dark. There's specifically a part where there's a room that's safe because it's lit up, and then it can't come in, and then it jumps into the ceiling, and you just hear it on the ceiling, and it unplugs the lights, and it's just so terrifying. I was like,
So
oh
smarter
no.
than these, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's all I could picture now, because this thing in the game is like, head scraping the ceiling, chasing after you.
Ooh, yeah,
it's
that's true.
freaky.
I didn't think about how tall they were because they're taller than the slender clowns, right? I thought those were like 11 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
They're
Ooh. Where do they find spare parts that big?
I think it's just a bunch of
Stacked
spare
on
parts.
top of each other.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a stacking element there.
This is one Kyle did not give us fan art for.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. Hold on one moment. Let me
Wait, can you find some?
probably
Wait,
There's
I'm
got
gonna see some.
gambling. There are actually some that I've found now that are they just don't have art. I can't find safe art. They're in groups with other monsters.
Oh, okay.
Darn. One day, maybe.
So one day,
A girl can dream.
I just really wanted to see that 13-foot tall monstrosity.
Okay, well, during the middle of this, Carl throws one of his random explosives that he has, and it says, "Unfortunately, I stopped falling much sooner than I anticipated. I landed directly on the spongy, rotting corpse of the divider, and that was the last thing I remembered." And it was like, my jaw hit the floor. Like, wait, what? I do not remember him, like, dying. Like, wait, what? And it said, what happened next was relayed to me later by Donut, who is the only one of us who stayed conscious for the remainder of the fight. Crazy. And then it just
insane.
explains it like normal, but it's like him explaining us to whatever Donut explained to him. But yeah, that was a crazy one little paragraph in the middle of that whole fight. So,
A boss corpse emoji battle.
ooh, gross.
Yeah, I didn't have any boss emojis this.
I know, it's so sad.
Chapter 19. This is when Donna the robot is prepping Carl for the show. She says Prince Maestro has been stripped of his titles and disowned by his father, so he is no longer considered royalty. And I was like, oh, snap, not little piglet. Oh, no. Oh, no. And then this cracked me up. This is when Carl and Donut are greeted before the show by Evo. And Donut says, "Are you Ripper Wonton?" And before Evo introduces himself, it says he chuckled softly. And his laugh here in the audiobook is like so dumb. It sounds so fake. He's like, like that's it. I'm like, it's like it basically sounds like he doesn't know how to laugh, and then he tried to laugh because he knew that they were from the human world. That's what it sounded like.
Okay, wait. Let me slow
it
this
was
back
pretty
down.
funny.
I'll see if I can play it.
We are delighted to meet you. Are you Ripper Wonton? He chuckled softly. No, princess.
It's like with a weird accent, too.
No.
That really got me.
Good job, Jeff Hayes.
Oh, I love that. Okay, hold on. Let me collect my thoughts here. Something John and I both had mentioned after we finished this book was all the little juicy morsels we get of the political landscape, and like there's so many. I just feel like it's so much bigger than anything we've gotten a glimpse of. And this part of this is in my review as well. I don't feel like we're missing things that we're supposed to know or anything, but it's like getting like these little tiny pieces of information about stuff. It's just so interesting. So I had highlighted this part. Evo was describing Manasa, and he explained that she's a Naga, but not of the blood sultanate, and she's not really a Naga either. And then he says the real Manasa perished long ago, but she contracted with the Valte Corporation to keep her career going once she died, which is real interesting, and I'm very excited to know more about that.
Yeah, it's weird because the Valte are like those little brain worms or whatever. So it's like they took over her body so her career could continue or whatever. And then they're like, and her latest single is currently ranked 8th in the entire universe. Like as if it's her, but it's definitely not her.
That's so weird. I love it.
I have included, this is actually the official art for Manasa from the immersive audiobook tunnel. I forget, I probably said that backwards. And then some fan art of Princess Donatia and fan art of Ripper Wonton.
I love this art of Manasa and Princess Donatia are like very elaborate, very well done. And this Ripper Wonton fan art is just like a pen. Yeah.
It's just a little pencil drawing.
Keep stepping on something. Oh, it's a pig.
Is it actually?
What?
The little piggy was under my desk. Little piggy bank.
Under my desk.
Yeah, all right. And this is when they meet Hecla on the show. It says, it was Hecla, the blonde-haired Icelandic woman who is now an Amazonian shield maiden. She ran the team Brynhild's Daughters. I'd last seen her just a few nights earlier on the recap episode. Her people had been scattered upon entering the third floor, but she'd mostly regrouped, and they'd taken out an owlbear burrow boss. I remembered that she had an automatic magical crossbow that tore everything up. Which, first of all, that was sweet to read,
Yeah.
but I wrote, I get to meet my Hecla, yes!
My Hecla. I wrote, OMG, yay, a hottie!
Very excited.
I love that you love her. Immediately after that, they have this whole like attack thing happen on Manasseh, and they kind of like cover it up while going to the danger zone. And this is like when guests get to come on and ask a bunch of questions. And this is when somebody asks, Princess Donut, who is Ferdinand? And Donut goes on and on. Ferdinand is the love of my life, and we've had a tragic courtship. She says, he often visited me at night, and we'd gaze across each other at the wide expanse. We both knew it was a love that couldn't be, for we were star-crossed lovers. And then she also talks about how that's the reason she jumped out of her window that night. That was the night that the crawl all started and everything. She says, a princess and a ruffian. And Carl just starts laughing and he goes, his name wasn't Ferdinand. His name was Gravy Boat. And he belonged to Marjorie on the first floor. It's the turn of events in that story that no one expected.
Gravy
Some
boat.
stray cat.
A
I
princess
love
and
that
a
Carl
ruffian.
knew who he was. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, and pretty quickly after that, I won't quote the whole thing, but Carl's whole, like, if it used to be okay, but it's not okay anymore, then maybe you should do something about it, speech he gave about the subjects of the intergalactic government being frogs slowly boiled alive, is one of the most often used quotes I see from him, other than his catchphrases. And it is also like a really telling look into his character that we may have known from the start. Like, just acting immediately when something's wrong, when he immediately broke up with me as soon as he saw that she was cheating. But we haven't heard him, like, voice this opinion or, like, as strongly or as openly as this. It's like, definitely one of my top Carl moments.
Ugh. Retweet. I love this so much. It's so good. And I see why it is widely quoted. I haven't actually seen this quote. I had seen a couple of, like, random things on merch or whatever. But
And this is, like, a audio that I find is often used on TikTok when I'm
okay.
scrolling through.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Oh, my next note was when they first said that something had just happened on Earth's surface. I assumed that it was the Maestro's dad because I thought that they had mentioned he was on his way to Earth's surface, but I forgot about his brother. Forgot he existed. But also interesting to learn from Ripper that the Valte and the Skull Empire were strong allies. And R.I.P. Uglu. Piglet. Uglu. I just can't.
That's a very noble name. What are you talking
can't.
about?
Honestly, I feel that's pretty solid for an orc name. I mean,
I guess, yeah, that's true. Queen Consort Uglu.
Yep.
All right, chapter 20. Zev is kind of talking to them after this whole attack went down and says, before today, there was never a reason to hide who was using what trailer. No one has ever attempted to assassinate a crawler outside the dungeon. What a nightmare. So this is just wild for how many crawls they've had and how many different variations. And this has never, ever happened before. And it was off of like Carl pissing him off in one conversation. Like that really got us here. Because obviously he said more in this one, but that was clearly a planned attack before it even happened. So yeah, it's just absolutely crazy.
And then Mordecai says Rust, like King Rust, is going to have to disown him too. I hadn't thought of that. That only leaves the sister as the heir. Did we know that there was a sister too? We don't know who this is, right?
I think this is the first mention of her.
Juicy.
Yeah.
It's a big family.
Tea.
Well, not anymore, really. Just a sister.
Uglu's legacy.
Yeah. Carl and Donut are soon after that talking about his various explosives, and he's saying stuff, or Donut says maybe we should have tested them first, and Carl says that's what they're going to put on my tombstone. And I just thought that was funny. But also led into sort of a sad moment where Donut was like, yeah, we don't get tombstones here. We just die. And it leads you to think like all of the other worlds where they say nobody ever makes it to the 18th floor, nobody remembers anyone probably from those except for those who like made deals and are NPCs.
Yeah.
Again, just doomed to die in the dungeon. Is crazy.
I still want to know how Mordecai has his mother's ashes, though. That's really bothering me. Did he keep them in his inventory? Do you get to keep what's in your inventory when you leave the dungeon if you take a deal to get out?
Yeah.
Maybe him and his brother, maybe they were like, had not their mom's funeral, but maybe they had just like
Picked up her ashes and
done a memorial
like it was
service and had her
pre-dungeon
ashes and like
And
that's how
bought
they ended
Pre-dungeon
up.
ashes. Oh,
Yeah.
no. I mean, he had a picture of his brother, but we have seen, like, Donut received a photo of B as, like, a gift. Can they gift someone their dead relative's ashes?
Yeah, maybe. That's a good question. I have no idea.
What a shitty gift.
Just open his
not to
box.
him.
Thanks.
puts it on the mantle.
Salt in the wounds. Oh my gosh. Okay, Donut being the Antichrist, though, is so funny to me. And I highlighted so much from that section. I just, when you think that it can't get more ridiculous or like even better, I'm like, this is book 2 and the cat is an Antichrist. I don't know.
Yep.
I had a question though about this part where they like call her Donut the Oakfell, and maybe I just missed it, or I don't know if we know who the angel is or if we don't know yet. I don't know if this is something we'll learn more about, but Salvatore was going on about the angel, our master, prepares us for the end of days. He has almost achieved all his tasks, but they're obviously not talking about Epito here, so I was wondering if we knew who that was. But they were saying they're prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect the angel, who in turn works toward Epito's vision of the plantation. So I think this is the first time we've seen the plantation as well. So there were a lot of either nuggets of things we will learn more about later, or just none of this is supposed to make sense.
From what we currently have, because like they talk about blossoming on with Epito, and like I figured the plantation was just like how they referred to heaven, because they say like, oh, we'll blossom on her tree or whatever. But
Right.
I do remember that they, in their like weird cult, somehow confused the word angel with basically skyfowl. So that combined with Quill and Featherfall tricking the elves into being on her team to do that big explosion that kills everyone except for who she marks, might be them being like, we're the chosen ones, our angel, referring to Featherfall.
Okay, because I would have assumed the angel was Miss Quill if they hadn't said he. Mm-hmm. But I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, because she was
if it would have
faking
been
that he was
Featherfall.
alive, so they probably still thought it was him.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
It is a lot to get thrown at you in like a sentence for sure. I definitely didn't catch it on my first read for sure. But I just had a note about how in that moment they crunch on their acorns, they get magical fervor, and Carl literally just sends the words magical fervor to Mordecai, and Mordecai comes back with like a whole description and how to handle it. Like they've already pre-worked, like at any point I'm going to just say words and I need you to tell me what they are. I was like, that's just awesome teamwork right there.
Yeah, I had a note on that earlier because there was a time where he was like, I sent a quick note to Mordecai. And so I wrote a quick note here about the little quick notes that we're getting to Mordecai in this chapter section, because there's like a billion of them. And I just can't imagine these other crawlers out there where we're learning about their sucky game guides, or how they're like, they hate their life, so they're taking it out on their crawlers, or like whatever else the little things we're hearing. So they got super lucky with Mordecai specifically, but also then with Audette telling him to keep Mordecai and all of that situation. So
which is starting to make a lot more sense with how valuable of a resource he is.
Yeah, you don't know like the other game guides deals or whatever. Their players could be asking for help and they're like, yeah, you should eat it, and then the guy just dies or something. Like, my job's done.
Yeah, and then they can just go sit down for another however many hundreds years or whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Well, then there's this little, are they elves? The little kids?
Dwarves. They're fathom dwarves.
Yeah. Dwarves. Thank you. Then there's these little dwarves that are hanging out in the street and they're playing around and stuff. And one of them has a salamander on a stick, ends up dropping it and running away. And Mongo comes over and ends up eating it. The boy comes back and just goes, "Where's Benjamin?" And it's like, the middle of this really actually serious moment and the fighting and all the things that ends up happening. And he just keeps asking for Benjamin and looking for Benjamin. And I don't know why of all the names that we've gotten in this whole entire thing from like, there's some wild names out there. But the salamander's name is Benjamin, and that's just top tier for me. It's so funny.
I forgot to put him in the guide. I'm sorry, Benjamin.
Well, and of course that he has a regular name, so he died. It makes sense too.
Of course.
You know.
But Carl's still alive, so.
Awkward silence.
Sorry, I was checking to see if there was any Benjamin fan art.
Aw, I love that.
There's not.
Oh, man.
Aw, dang it.
There is real images of salamanders if you want to Google those later.
On a stick?
Well, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Oh no, I forgot about this already. Okay, Eunice, while all the other elves were trying to like unfreeze her, it says her health moved to the red. This is the pregnant Fathom dwarf. Her health moved to the red. A second smaller health bar appeared over her stomach. This one was also in the red, though not as deep. And I was immediately traumatized just by the existence of this tiny health bar. And I wrote, oh no, I do not like this feature. Yeah. I did not need to know that this existed.
I came to Lauren with this where I told her as soon as I heard it, I was like, I do not remember this. Why is there a baby health bar on her belly?
Yeah.
No.
Not a fan.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
No, I don't like that. I'm glad that didn't really continue down that path because I got real nervous there for a minute. Oh my gosh. The end of this chapter, though, of chapter 20, it's when it says the boy moved to punch a second time, but when he pulled his arm back, he found that it was no longer there. I just was cackling through the rest of this section, and the last line of the chapter said, "Give it back, give me my arm back." Mongo obliged. Mongo's a legend. Oh my gosh.
What a brave kid to punch a lightning tooth dinosaur.
Yeah. And then keep yelling at it after taking its arm.
Give it back.
He's like, okay.
Whatever you say, guy.
Oh my gosh.
Well, into chapter 21 is where we meet Katya, and I got some Katya fan art based off her description of herself, really.
I love it. And her description of herself also cracked me up. She was trying to look at what she was doing, and she said, oh my gosh, I look like a Juan Gris painting. If you don't know who Juan Gris is, please Google his portrait paintings for a good laugh. And I put his portrait that he painted of Pablo Picasso in here because it looks a lot like the fan art of Katya.
Yeah.
Very accurate. Very accurate of her description and whoever did the fan art. Very accurate.
Yeah.
Juan Gris
fan art is
imitation.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, and then I just thought it was super cute how they showed up. And I mean, we didn't see the conversation of them telling Mordecai about Katya, but he was sitting there helping her. So maybe he knew. But either way, I just thought that was really nice of Mordecai to try to sit there and help her before she was even officially in the party or any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
And after she officially joins and becomes more acquainted with the group, she says that despite being an art teacher, she's no good at forming her form as a doppelganger, and says, what is the saying? Those who can't do, teach? And I just put, Lauren, thoughts on this, please? I know you've heard this phrase before.
that's so rude, first of all, but also probably accurate.
Not expecting that.
That's fine. I know my abilities.
Oh
No,
my
I'm just kidding.
gosh.
Thanks, Kyle. I
You're
needed
welcome.
that today.
Wow.
I know you're a great singer and a great teacher. I saw her show choir show this weekend. It was very good. If you've ever seen The Price is Right and you like musicals, have we got the show for you?
Thank you, Kyle. Anyway, have we got the show?
And I was almost
for you?
about to sing
Already
VeggieTales for a
finished
second.
performing, but
Yep, season's over as of literally today. I had a performance today, and it is now done. So,
Yes.
anyways, Katya ends up explaining her skills and abilities and all the things that she can do. And one of the last that she mentions is, I'm also good at fixing engines. And Carl says, were you a mechanic? And she goes, no, I've actually never fixed an engine before, but I got my earth hobby potion and I'm a gearhead. I was an art teacher before all this happened. And I was like, oh, okay. So these, earth hobby potions aren't all weird and obscure. Some people knew exactly what it was immediately. How convenient.
That seems pretty helpful.
And then in the recap that they're watching, after Lucia's being asked about a possible feud between Donut and her dogs, she says, when being asked, is it going to happen? Or is she going to bring her on the show to fight? She says, no, this show's a waste of time. Every moment spent not gaining experience is a waste of time. I'll find Donut in the dungeon, where her death will be forever. Cece and Gus will tear this puta apart, and then I will rip Carl to pieces and take all of his shiny toys. And after everything we'd heard about Lucia so far, when I read this, I was like, oh, crap.
Yep.
She's
there's some
13,
line in here-
everybody.
Yeah,
I
Carl
know,
even
isn't it
says that.
crazy?
I have to remember she's a kid.
Yeah, it's like the first time we've really heard her talk, too, and I was like, that is weirdly grown up for a 13-year-old to talk that way. Yeah.
That's why I think I forgot she was a kid in the first book.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like,
it's easy
wait,
to forget.
what? Yeah, absolutely
Some
wild.
strong language, Lucia. What would your mother think?
Very strong language.
I mean, you just
My
said it.
goodness.
Yeah, but I'm from Texas, so I've said it before. I had 3 years of Spanish. We had to learn something.
Okay. Well, Donut reacts to seeing all of this on the news, and Donut yells, I've done no such thing. They're lying. And then she turned to Carl and says, Carl, I do not like this. Since when has the news been allowed to lie? And I just had to stop and laugh for a minute.
Oh, Donut.
Because that was funny. I know. She's so cute. And then Carl says, they're going to bring us together somehow, aren't they? And Mordecai says, of course they are, but not yet. They'll want a big build-up first. So I know John's been kind of theorizing on that for a little bit. I guess
That
we
was me,
will.
but okay.
Oh, I thought it was...
I think you both have said that you wanted to... Her
that
and Hecla
John-
were ones that
that
you've
they'd
been-
be like the first crawler-on-crawler fight or something.
Oh,
what
well,
I
yeah.
could see.
That
said.
Yeah, John did say that. I was saying that I think it's still going to be a while before we do actually meet her on page. But I am excited about Hecla being on page.
Yeah. I was talking about the fight part.
Yes.
And the scene. I see where we got. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I was really confused earlier in the book whenever they were leaving Miss Quill's office, and he talked about fixing her shelf for all her like Beanie Babies or whatever, and I was like, all right, dude, whatever. And then here he drops that they had like rigged up 3 sticks of dynamite and hidden them in the shelf behind, like, that was holding up Miss Quill's Beanie Babies or whatever. And I was like, that's so genius. Look at you, Carl, thinking ahead. Love it so much.
And then we find out that Mongo hits level 13. He gets noticeably larger from Carl's POV, rising to the height of my chest. He'd gone from dog size to pony size just like that. And I was like, hell yes, dude. Yeah. Just getting more and more formidable. I love the Mongo growth. Just get him massive. I'm excited to see how truly big he gets.
At least he got the pink feathers, so he's in the pink pony club.
Yep.
Oh,
Nice.
That's adorable. Congrats, Mongo. All right, chapter 22. They end up blowing up the whole entire like office building or whatever, and they get a bunch of notifications, and one of them says that Carl's title has changed from Royal Bodyguard to Magistrate Carl of the Medium Skyfowl Settlement. And I was like, oh, congratulations, Carl. Look at you moving up in the world. And
so,
then
wait, does this mean that when they come back to the Overcity on lower floors that Carl will still be the magistrate?
Well, I mean, we see here that it had very little effect on how he was treated by the citizens.
Right.
So who could say if it would even truly matter aside from
Come back
a
to
nice
like
title?
a mountain of paperwork, yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness you're here.
We've been waiting for you, sir.
All the
The city exploded and we had no notary.
Notary. Oh, that's funny. And then Carl notices that the AI has been maybe not being fully truthful, or at least has been saying things that are inaccurate, because it had said Quill was the assistant to the magistrate, Katya was human, even though they were really a doppelganger, and that Burgundy was also human, even though it was one of those vampire things, which was the Krassu. And it said that the map had labeled all the corpses with an X when they could still turn into monsters. So it's important to note, and so I put it in here, so it's important for us all to note that we really can't trust anything.
Fair.
Thumbs up.
Great.
Excellent.
And that takes us into chapter 23. And this is when Carl picks up the dungeon Beanie Baby as they get out and drop to the street. It says, the plush creature within was an armored man atop a black horse that appeared at the tag, which said Camaris. I pulled it all into my inventory. And I was like, oh yeah, let's see how much this baby is worth. We didn't find out technically how much it was worth, but...
Yeah, in chapter 24, it just says that it was at the top of their inventory list by value and then seconded by the protective carrier it was stored in. So
That's crazy.
it's expansive. Mm-hmm.
And then out in the street is when they get approached by Daniel Bautista. But as they're kind of describing the look of him, they mention again the orange Cincinnati Bengals hat. And I'm just like, come on, man. Really? At least it wasn't in like a negative connotation way here. It was just kind of like they were referencing that as a similarity to how he looks.
She said someone made a bad furry costume out of the hat, is what Donut said.
Yep. I'm like, come on, man. But they're chatting with Daniel, and you talk about his family and whatever, and like killing the lemurs at the circus. And Daniel says, it's no problem. I'm happy knowing that they have been avenged. I owe you a debt. Call me if you need me, and I will come. And I was like, starting to rack up some allies here. I feel like they got Hecla a little bit. They got Daniel Bautista here, old Tiger Man. I was like, heck yeah, let's do it.
Little tiger
got
man.
Look impossible moment.
Yeah. Speaking of the little, but not so little Tiger Man, there's some fan art of this muscular tigran man.
So Kyle has two pictures in here. The one is pretty good.
Yeah, rejected
The second
Thundercat.
one is like a very cartoony, like he's laying down with a bunch of these weird, random, small creatures around him.
Well, no, because
These are the stuffy. These are the
he
little,
took thousands of stuffies from her home,
Beanie
so
Babies.
somebody drew him just lay down with them,
He's laying
having a
down.
soft little moment. What I thought was fun when I looked at it too is you can see there, like under his left armpit is a little Mongo one, and then
Yeah.
you can see Lucia Mara up on a pillow, her little skull form,
Oh my
and just
gosh.
random animals too. But there are some.
Yeah.
There's some heart boxers
And
on
the
a
one
rat
has
in
heart
there.
boxers. Yeah. That's cute.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
he-
thought you'd want to see his softer side too. I mean,
That's
guess
pretty
so.
funny.
I didn't
Wow.
look at it closely enough to see what those things were. I
Yeah.
just saw like these weird, random little creatures around him.
Yeah.
And I put, yo,
He's wearing boxers.
what the WTF is the second picture, guy? I was so confused.
I was like, I
The
told
first
Lauren,
one was so on point, and I was like, what the hell is this second?
I told Lauren, I was like, I found a pretty good Daniel Bautista, and I think I found like maybe a thirst trap of Daniel Bautista.
That's literally exactly what it is, I think. Yeah.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yep.
Underneath the thirst trap, I said, here's some more fan art. And then I put a picture of Daniel Tiger's neighborhood.
Also that.
Yeah.
That's all I could think
Do you
of.
think he was with his family saying grown-ups come back, or did...
Oh, no. Kyle, no.
No.
They got on the trolley for one last time.
Hugga mugga. All right, well,
We are all clearly parents of young children.
after he takes his leave, Carl just goes, that guy was intense, which he really was. And Donut responds by saying, I would be too if I looked like that. And she goes on to say how he looks stupid, and his cousin was like some sort of a tree thing, and even Katya was told to pick something not really conducive to her as a person, or told by their game guide to choose something not conducive to them, possibly because their game guides hated their jobs and took it out on crawlers. And again, just saying like they were really, really lucky to get Mordecai.
Yep. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Not so lucky was Carl to have dated B ever on any plane of existence, because Carl corrects Donut and says, and I was in the Coast Guard, not the Navy. They're different. And Donut says, are you sure? Miss Beatrice always told people you were in the Navy. And I put the gif of Meryl Streep going, boo! Even though I'm pretty sure that's not what she's actually saying in the moment. And then Jean Ralphio from Parks and Rec going, the worst. Because she sucks.
Oh, man. Do you think she did it out of like legitimate ignorance or just to be like, no, he's in the Navy?
Neither would surprise me.
Yeah, like she knew it bothered him, so that's why she said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
She's
get
like,
you.
whatever.
Well, and in the same conversation, Carl's sort of talking about like if he could have done anything instead, he says he would be a forester, that he had seen enough ocean to last a lifetime and would be happy alone in the woods watching for fires. And I just wrote, do you think this could be any kind of possible foreshadowing for like either post-dungeon Carl or more ammunition for the AI to like use against him now that he has said this out loud?
Oh no, that's true.
But,
I like the idea that it's foreshadowing for post-dungeon Carl.
yeah. I just don't know how
our
that
series ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just him out.
I
in the
mean,
woods.
there's
Just a forest planet.
but like what? Yeah, like what woods? He said. I had a quick little note here at the end of 23. It said that Carl had pulled the handmade letter into his backpack. He described it as a hastily built thing with crap from his inventory. It was a rickety slipshod combination of lengths of wood and metal weight bars that would give an OSHA inspector a coronary. And I wrote, would it give an OSHA inspector a coronary? I think I might need more information directly from the source on this one.
What?
I don't know if that's...
Is this happening?
Oh no, honey.
Is it packed up?
It's packed up.
There's way too much crazy crap going on. So don't call me back. I've got bigger fish to fry than a freaking ladder in somebody's pocket, okay? See you later.
The fact that you were so disheveled made that so much better, too.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Well, obviously his partner was busy elsewhere, so.
It's high demand, high times. All right, chapter 24. These little bits and pieces that we got from Remix's little ADHD monologue were so... I listened to this a couple of times, and I feel like I still need to go back and listen to it again. But one of the things that he said was Skyfell ruled this world. Did you know that? Before that demon destroyed it all. I like to think of it as a metaphor. Some say the primals... ... No, I can't. That's off script. Sorry, please. The Skyfell runs on top of the world in control of the Overcity. It's important you know that. And I wrote, what about the primals?
I too listened to this multiple times, both first and second read.
I want to go back and listen to it again. I have some theories about this. Nothing fully formed because we didn't actually get any information, but that was, yep.
You calling that an ADHD monologue hit so deep because I was like, oh, that is exactly what that was, and I relate.
Yeah. You
gonna start saying
realize
that.
you're
No,
not
that's
saying
off
what you
script.
meant to say at
Yeah,
all.
that's off script. I'm not supposed to say that right now.
I will, use that for myself. I would be so angry at anyone who used that on me, but I would use that for myself. Like if someone was like, you're off script, I'd be like, you better shut up right now. Show you how off script we can go. But yeah, even the description for Remix as a soul leech capacitor is incredible. And I will be making use of this monster in all of my lich-based D&D games from now on, because that's such a cool thing.
Oh, fun. It is. It's crazy.
And then they're like figuring out whatever happened in this story from the ADHD monologue. And Carl says, everyone would be dead except the flyers. We just stopped a genocide. And Donut goes, I guess that makes up for the time you killed all those goblin babies on the first floor. And he goes, we're not having this conversation again. My note was, again? I want to know how many times it got brought up. And then they get this new quest called The Fool Who Broke the Glass. And it is a group quest. So that's a whole new world building thing that kind of gets added is these group quests. And then because that they are the ones who kind of initiated it, they can't opt out, but it's interesting that the others could have opted out. And they have 7 minutes on the clock, and they are either going to run for their lives or, stay and try to figure it out. And Donut finally says, we should try to save the others. It's the right thing to do. It says, I didn't answer. I just reached up and scratched her, and then I ascended the ladder. Just like, I just love these two so much.
Yeah.
They're just heroes, and
moments.
They're the best. And then they learned that Remix was a crawler, calling himself a tenor, being somebody who most likely made it to the 10th floor. And Carl says, I think he would have been famous once. And Donut responds with, Carl, I don't want to become an NPC. I guess it won't matter if we die. But, that's just...
Yeah.
her maybe
so
trying
sad.
to figure out what it would be like, I guess, if they make a deal, or I don't know, maybe coming to terms with potentially what their reality actually is. And then right before they think they're going to die, Donut says, I'm not as dumb as I pretend to be. I know she's dead. And Carl goes, I know. I wrapped myself around her, and we both closed our eyes and embraced for the end. And obviously they didn't die there, but it's just a really I don't know, deep moment between a guy and his cat, and it's just really cute.
About his ex-girlfriend who's probably not actually dead, but still a great moment between the two of them.
She said she knows she is.
Yeah.
As far as she knows, she is.
It's crazy to think that like Donut's having this existential crisis after only having the ability to have an existential crisis for like a couple weeks.
True.
Good point. And she's had more character development in the couple weeks of her life like this than most characters in any book that I've ever read. So
Chance is a blessing and a curse.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Chapter 25, our last chapter, sort of. I highlighted where it said Carl's Doomsday Scenario for his unstable custom explosive large enough to rattle the teeth of a god. And I wrote, they said the name of the book. And also, this is such an amazing thing to name the book after. I love this. Yeah. I love this. I'm excited to find out why all the other books are named what they're named.
I know, we never really talked about the name of the book. So I was excited that it was here.
Yeah, why is the first one called Dungeon Crawler Carl?
It's weird.
Well, I put a note in because it talks about all other explosives in terms of like stability percentile, and this one it just said explosion imminent 3/1 to the by 1/10 to the 7th power or something. I don't know. That's the same as 0.00003% stability for everyone who hates exponents like I do. So it is like literally, it's exploding already.
Yeah, it's already in the process of exploding.
Yeah.
Crazy. Ooh. And then in the description of Carl's Doomsday Scenario, it was created by a man who murders baby and steals rare collectibles from his elders. So they start running. There's all these like blasts of energy that are kind of doing crazy things through this whole moment, and one of them is that it is affecting magical items. So Mordecai tells him to take them all off, and it said thanks to the tiara's fleeting status it would disappear if she removed it, talking about Donut's tiara, and then it would be given to another crawler, which would be a very bad thing. Only one of them would be allowed to proceed to the 10th floor, and then eventually we do see her take off the tiara, so that's kind of a big deal. And in all of this, Carl takes off his underwear because they are a magical item, and there's all these hilarious comments of like, dude, get your junk out of my face, and like all that happens, and it's really funny. And then I also put a little note here about I didn't understand why Kyle didn't give us fan art of this moment, but that's okay.
You shall receive. Here we go.
Oh no.
Does it exist? Oh, okay. He's got underwear on.
Yeah, he's got underwear on, but there's a little thirst trap of Carl for you.
Oh, he's sleeping with a donut.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I feel like him and Daniel Tiger would be great friends based on these fictional thirst traps.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
They both look very cuddly.
They could be laying in the same bed, depending on the photo here.
Yeah. Carl's already used to a cat being on his face.
Oh. Whoa. Whoa. Wow.
Sorry.
Did that was that how you intended it to sound, or?
I just saw that donut was on his face, and Daniel's also a cat, so the lines connected, and they're connected forever now.
Oh.
I'm sure that fan art somewhere exists too.
If it doesn't exist yet, it can now. Get on it, people.
Send us your AO3 links.
Send us your Carl/Daniel fanfic.
Your snick, isn't that what they're called?
Yes.
Your snake. Oh, wow.
My God, Kyle. Okay. We're just going to try to keep on moving.
Yeah, segue from that.
Ooh, okay.
Good luck.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm just going to go just right into it. So they start to descend to the 4th floor, and one of the last things Carl says is congratulations to Mordecai. Says he didn't answer, but Donut looked up at him wide eyes, and she says, that's right, he's free now, isn't he? Because we've made it to the 4th floor. He gets to go home once the dungeon is over. So we don't get to hear Mordecai's response from that, but he did it. They got to the 4th floor. And then one of the last things that said, I guess technically in the book regular chapters, not epilogue. But Donut says, "Hey, Carl, you probably should have put your pants back on when you still had your inventory, don't you think? Aren't we going straight to Audette's show?" And he just says, "God damn it, Donut." And that's the end of the book. Oh, it's so funny.
Amazing.
We jump straight into the epilogue. And one of the first things we see is Katya again, but it says she had changed into a stunning, short-haired woman, black-haired, probably in her mid-30s, pale, with light, wide-set eyes that sat at an odd angle on her face. And she says, "This is the real me, Donut." And then Kyle put this like black and white photo of her.
It's so sad.
But she's cute.
Her
She
true
is
self.
Looks like a sick Victorian child.
Not far
I can
off,
see that.
I guess.
I like her hair.
Yeah.
And then we jump straight into Audette's show, and she starts explaining this whole like veto thing that happens. I guess the syndicate gets to allow a single veto each season, and it's super important because it usually happens like on the 10th or even deeper floors, and it's never happened this early. But Borant was forced to use their veto on this prize decision, which reversed the ruling on everyone getting their celestial box, which is not only a big deal because obviously they didn't get a celestial box, but also means they don't have this veto for potentially later floors, and that could be a whole big who knows what and all the things. And I just really like this one like inner monologue moment from Carl whenever he was kind of getting all this information, and he says, "I was trying really hard not to break the golden rule, which was thou shalt not talk shit about Borant. I was finding it very difficult." And then
Celestial rule.
yeah, exactly. And then we see this guy, Quan CH, reverently open up his celestial box. He's the only one that got it. And it's because Donut like cut him out of the chat. And so he didn't know everyone was running into the 4th floor. Like, so he was just the only one out there and didn't know. And so he ends up getting a glowing robe. I said it didn't show what the robe's description was, but the moment that Quan put it on, he floated off the ground. Magical wisp-like wings grew from the back of his body, and his left hand glowed blue. That's all we see of him with his cool celestial item.
Uh-huh.
Good for you, Quan. Get it?
Way to go.
This is like you. Okay. Thanks. Good job, Quan.
We had Quan and Juan in this episode.
That's true.
There was Quan and a Juan in this episode.
Wow. This is our moment. That's my name in the recording room today as well. Typed in my name as Quan CH, but with a C. I just highlighted this again. Jon mentioned it in the chapter recaps, but that Donut had risen 7 levels from 19 to 26. Carl had risen 6 levels from 21 to 27. And he said the last time I'd set foot in a safe room had been level 19, which is crazy. So he has 24 stat points to distribute at the beginning of the next book. And then there was Katya, who had leaped 12 levels and went from 9 to 21, which was just absolutely insane. And I'm so excited about that. And I have some notes in my theories and things about that later. Very excited. And then when they listed out the current leaderboard, I immediately wrote, "Yay, Lee Jude." And then I was like, oh my God, Mrs. McGibbon. And now I'm wondering if this is why her name was different from what they actually were calling her because of the shock factor of this moment. Because the only reason I knew exactly who she was immediately was because her name is Elle McGibb in the system. But it was only because I had asked about that in the last book, and then I was like, "Dang, Mrs. McGibbon."
Well, and she's like level 13.
Yeah,
like, what is
still
she
in the top
doing?
10.
Frost Maiden?
Yeah,
What?
is she doing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. And then Audette, the show ends. Audette kind of gives Carl some advice again. Actually, really has Donut even leave the stage so she could talk to Carl alone. And she starts talking about Hekla. Says that Hekla doesn't have the same sense of justice that he has, which can make Hekla dangerous. And says that she's kind of been watching her some, and she thinks that Hekla is obsessed with the idea of getting Donut to join her gang, which Carl ends up responding with, like, "I don't think Donut would ever leave me." And Audette says, "No, I don't either. Not as long as you're still alive." So there's some drama going into book 3.
Thoughts about that too? I had some questions about this because I was so excited about the mention of the gods here, where it says, be careful with that gauntlet. It has the power to summon the war god Groll if you use it against any of his celebrants. And I said, wait, I thought Groll didn't exist. I guess maybe the gods do exist. They're just not literal gods. So does this mean we might get to meet Apido as well? And I wrote, and whoever the F the angel is, but he did, supposedly, allegedly. I guess I just was like, oh, the gods are fake, they don't matter, but it sounds like they can be summoned
in the dungeon, and then there's the real world. There's like 2 levels of things. So in the real world, the gods don't matter, and then in the dungeon, obviously they've talked about gods a bajillion times. So.
Right. I guess I didn't expect for the gods to ever like be on page. I think I expected them to just be like there were NPCs who just had their little cult followings.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I was so distracted by this that I missed the part right after that John ended up sending me a screenshot of it today. The part that said that, what's his name, did like a deity sponsorship.
You're muted,
Oh,
John, if you said it.
King Rust.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I had like totally missed that. I was like, wait, what? He had to go back and send it to me. But then right at the end, it says that's just the bounty when Carl asks about the numbers after everyone's name on the leaderboard. And Audette says, it's how much other crawlers get if they kill you. I wrote, oh, shit.
Yeah, even the
That's
lowest
my
one
last
was quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
It's like, I think 100,000 for the lowest ones.
But like I don't really have a frame of reference for that, I guess, like because we don't know a whole lot yet about how things are assigned value or like what a lot of money is. We know that they need money in order to, because they don't just have safe rooms for everything now, but like
I guess the only thing we've really seen is him haggling with the Silk Road.
Right.
With like a few thousand for explosives or whatever, but it's
talked
not like he says how much money he has constantly or anything.
Yeah.
I think they even talked about like the shower system on that boat they were on could be available for purchase, but it was like super expensive. But it doesn't really like say a number for that.
Yeah,
so
or your own like personal space available for purchase that they didn't really give a number for either.
Yeah, well, and like when they first talked about how Carl was getting like royalties from the Jugaboom, it just mentioned that he had, was it 5,000 gold or was that too much? I can't remember. Something like that, where he was like starting to get royalties, but we haven't heard about it since. So I feel like the next time he checks, it's going to be like insanely high or something. I was like, oh, this is cool. I don't know what that means, but
yeah. Oh, well, we did it. We finished the book. Good job, everybody. Yay. Let's talk about our star ratings and our overall thoughts for Carl's Doomsday Scenario. What do you got, John?
I got 4 stars for book number 2. The world building I thought was great in this one. I'm sad to leave this floor, although the way in which we leave it behind is in true Carl and Donut style. I'm kind of bummed to have not seen Frank or Maggie at all, like even in the recaps, but it was fun to meet a few new crawlers. I think they'll come into play later in the series. Both quest lines were really fun. I thought they were well thought out. Obviously, the Signet line is just getting started. But man, if that was like just the start, I cannot wait to reconnect with that crazy bee. So the whole sex worker quest was a lot of fun too. And who'd have thought that they would have finished it out and it turns into a new, more intense one to finish out the book. So a bit of a fun plot twist to ramp things up there at the end. It was fun.
Nice. What about you, Con?
So fun. I'm giving this one a solid 4 stars too. Like I said, I'm already so impressed with the depth of the world building and could totally see my star ratings increasing from here. I'm loving all of the lore and politics and like complicated interwoven backstories and shows within shows and absolute chaos of the series. And again, we're getting like so much growth from our characters and meeting so many new characters with incredibly unique personalities. And it's like only book 2. And I am continually mind blown by Jeff Hayes' narration. And I loved the little additions into this audiobook, like the sound for messages and his character voice is getting even better. And that makes me excited too.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I also gave it 4 big old stars. I remember on my first read of the series, this being my least favorite of all of them. And I think it's partially because I was still skeptical about reading it. Like Kyle and I read the first one together and I was like, all right, I guess I'll keep reading with you, you know. But also the gore from that Krasu scene where they actually discover them and everything, I think that really got to me that first time. And it did not sit well with me, even because of our BPNF book club, and we've read like Butcher and Blackbird and some of these other like more gory books. I feel like this time around I was like, okay, it's okay now. I'm not like on the verge of almost throwing up because of how gross this is. It could also be because I've actually already read the book, but either way, it wasn't as bad for me this time around. I do really like how this one sets up, I feel like, a lot of the world building as far as like how like actual quests work, and some of, you know, like obviously they get their class and their race and all of those types of things that we learn about. It's a short book, but you learn so much in there. We do get to meet so many new characters, and even the development that happens outside of the dungeon is mind blowing, and you know, people dying and the veto being used and all the stuff. So yeah, I just can't wait to keep reading. I love the next one. So, yay. Kyle?
Well, for the first time ever, I'm right there with you at 4 stars. So
Wow.
get the official 4-star BPNF stamp on this book.
We've never all been on the same before.
That's wild.
What a life we're living.
Not even like a 4.2 or like a 3.8.
I will
like
say it like mathematically was a 4.1, but I just lowered it one to be with you guys.
I'll accept that.
So sorry, Matt Dinniman, I lowered your book 0.1 stars due to friendship. But sort of like Lauren said, I do remember this book. It was like Lauren was not immediately reading the next one like I was after the first one. So this was like I was tentatively asking her, like, are you sure you don't want to read along with me? The next book is what I like started begging her to read along with me. There was just so much in this book as there was in the first, but at this point I think I had moved past the learning curve, right into like a readiness to accept the world as it was and simply absorb the constant lore and info we had dumped and or spewed at us. And the second read really did solidify how necessary this book is for the series as a whole, which is wild because it's also the shortest, but there's so much stuff in here that is a building block for later. And I cannot wait to get tangled up in the next book once more and really iron down the cast of characters into a solid team.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
But let's talk about this next book. Do you have any theories about what might be coming down the track?
All right, so my main theory has to do with Carl's race as primal and the mention of Rust paying top dollar for a deity sponsorship. So calling back to when Carl chose this race, and it mentioned that some systems worshipped them as gods. Well, I think that when they get to the floor where Rust's sponsorship kicks in, Carl might be, obviously don't know the exact scenario. He might be leveled up enough, or maybe circumstance or luck will have something kick in with his primal race where he maybe becomes like a half god or a demigod, and maybe even in that instance be able to kill Grohl. I don't know how that would look, which would be crazy, because I'm assuming if somebody like him, if they're paying for a deity sponsorship, I'm assuming that it is physical manifestation in some form, I would think. But to go even further than that, since the primals were fighting a species that is unknown to anybody else, this may cue up Carl to help maybe Borant down the line, maybe in turn like offering his help or something, in turn saving himself and Donut, like if this or when this unknown species inevitably shows up or is discovered, possibly. So that's my big Carl and primal. My next one is I'm actually a little scared about Mordecai. So I'm afraid that because I feel like ever since he became manager that he's been a little standoffish about this fact. I think he knows that when they selected him manager, the reason he's probably so ticked off is because now he doesn't actually get to be free at the fourth floor.
Gotcha.
And he knows that. He just didn't want to tell him.
Yeah, because he doesn't respond when Carl
He
says
didn't respond
congratulations.
at the end either.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yep.
I'm worried that,
Interesting.
you know, he knew, and that was partial reason, which would be super interesting because Audette didn't tell them either. Like she just said that he'd be mad, but didn't say like he'd be mad because he wouldn't. But then if she told him that, then she knows that they probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was their best chance of survival. So I don't think he's getting free at the 4th level. I think it's a matter of just he's there. He's got to be with them now until they die. If they die, basically.
Yep.
Very interesting. Con, got anything brewing over
I have
there?
lots of random things brewing over here. First of all, I cannot wait to see what the heck Katya can do, but I'm a little nervous about what that means for Hekla, because I do love Hekla, but I could see her totally screwing over Carl and or Donut, especially if Katya becomes this like very valuable asset all of a sudden and is still technically part of Hekla's party. Is that right? Is she still part of Hekla's party?
No, she had
She's
to
part
leave
of
it to
Carl's.
join Carl's. Yeah.
Okay, because I remember them saying she was like too far away to get experience points, but she is officially with
She
Carl
could still
now.
chat
Carl,
because they
yeah.
like did the fist
Right.
bump or whatever. But
Yeah. Okay. Okay. If B or someone Carl knows is still alive in the dungeon, they would obviously know that Carl is there by now and will have been likely following him on the recap episodes. I do still hope that we get an interaction from someone he knew on Earth, and I still hope that it's B because justice needs to be served for this B. I also think / hope that Carl being a primal is going to end up being like a really huge deal. And this was John and I were both kind of formulating things about this separately, but I am hoping that he might get like assigned a quest related to the primal's history or something at some point, or even this might be like post dungeon, but even bring the actual primals out of hiding if they have just like dropped off the face of the universe. I was about to say Earth, but that's not accurate. And I don't really have any theories yet about the Valte and the Skull Empire and Borant yet, but I am absorbing all the tea and I am excited to learn more, especially because really the only thing I've heard about book 3 is that it is thick with lore. And I'm very excited. Also, I really want Donut to get a new crown, but I'm nervous about what her crown appearing to another crawler is going to mean. That's it.
Well, that takes us to the cry counter. So after book 1 and book 2, does anyone need to fess up?
no, ma'am.
No.
All right. Well, that's the big zeros from all of us.
All right. Well, next is Onward to the 4th floor. We'll be moving on down next week and covering our first section of the 3rd book in the series, The Dungeon Anarchist's Cookbook. And we'll be starting off with just the first 7 chapters, and once we get going, there will be no breaks. So as always, you can find our full episode schedule pinned on our Instagram. If you'd like to read along with us, we do have Discord channels for both spoiler-free discussion that matches our reading pace and full series spoiler chats where you can spoil yourself and others. Join us through Patreon to read with us or read ahead with others.
New achievement. Officially invested reader. You have successfully completed the 2nd installment of Dungeon Crawler Carl. You have passed Curiosity and entered Commitment. You now defend this series in group settings. Reward? Permanent Personality Flag. Will recommend this series unprompted. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Between Pages and Friends. Check out BetweenPagesandFriends.com for merch, events, and to sign up for our newsletter to keep up with all things happening at BPNF. Until next time, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and to stay blessed.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Stay alive out there.
Stay alive!